This is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Democratic Socialist Congresswoman from New York's 14th District. In 2018, she successfully primaried Congressman Joe Crowley, the fourth most powerful Democrat in the House. With her primary win, she became an overnight sensation and media darling. But this also made AOC a political target. Not just by Republicans, but also Democrats, who believe that her policies are too radical and that she's more concerned with her celebrity status and her brand. In the June Democratic primary for New York 14, AOC will face three Democrats: Sam Sloan, a publisher and elite-level chess player, Queens activist Badrun Khan, and former CNBC anchor Michelle Caruso Cabrera. Of those three, Michelle Caruso Cabrera, or MCC for short, seems to be the one that could pose the biggest threat to AOC. She has a bachelor's in economics from Wellesley, and combined with her experience as an anchor and contributor covering the financial world, she could bring a unique perspective to Congress, making her a valuable asset. And unlike her fellow challengers, Caruso Cabrera is the only Democrat whose campaign has raised over $1 million, and that's no small feat. So on May 18th, MCC and AOC took part in the Democratic primary debate that aired on BronxNet and was hosted by Gary Axelbank. And unfortunately, because of the health crisis, the debate was held virtually. Right off the bat, you'll notice that Caruso Cabrera's video setup is inferior to AOC's. MCC's lighting is terrible, and her Zoom connection makes her look like a pixelated ghost. And putting campaign signs behind you in a debate is tacky. Not to mention that it doesn't look like there's any thought to their placement. You wouldn't know it by looking at her, but she had a 30-year career in broadcast television.
Let's start with political ideology. Each candidate here is running under the banner of the Democratic Party. What are the values of the Democratic Party that you support, and how will you pursue them in the next congressional term?
This is a pretty simple question. Now watch MCC not answer it.
I got into this race because I'm the daughter and the granddaughter of immigrants. Immigrants long championed by Democrats. You know, when my family came here, they had all the typical jobs of recent arrivals, you know, the overnight shifts, waiting tables, washing dishes. My dad was one of the first in his family to go to college. He went to what he called a commuter college, which meant he drove or he took the train. That's where he met my mom. Her English wasn't perfect. She sure was pretty.
The question was about political ideology, but please tell me more about your pretty mom.
I was a waitress at Pizza Hut. Someday I'm gonna write a book. Everything I ever needed to learn about life, I learned at Pizza Hut.
If that book is gonna be anything like your meandering spiel, hard pass. And this keeps on going. Next, she talked about how her dad tried to instill in her a good work ethic.
And he also had me do physical labor one summer where I worked as a landscaper. And at the time I thought he was crazy, but I understood pretty quickly because I got home exhausted every night and I thought, wow, in the fall I get to go back to school.
I didn't waitress as a summer job or have a high school job. That was my life. I'm a daughter of a domestic worker. My mom cleaned houses and I did homework on other people's staircases growing up.
So Caruso Cabrera's point was that she learned life lessons and developed a good work ethic by busting her ass during summer breaks. But according to AOC, since MCC wasn't struggling financially, her story isn't as authentic. Now here's a fun fact. Besides being Hispanic women who abbreviate their name using 3 letters, MCC and AOC both hold a bachelor's degree in economics. Despite holding the same degree, there was a huge difference in their initial career paths. So just for fun, let's compare them. Caruso Cabrera graduated in 1991 and immediately landed a job as a producer at Univision, and 7 years later, she started work at CNBC. Ocasio-Cortez, on the other hand, graduated in 2011 not only with a bachelor's in economics, but also a bachelor's in international relations. 7 years after graduating, and despite holding 2 degrees, she was still bartending and waitressing. Maybe working at a Pizza Hut does give you an advantage. Who knew? So one of the biggest issues that people have with Ocasio-Cortez is that she spends a lot of time away from the district, despite campaign promises to the contrary, and Caruso Cabrera called her out on it.
What I don't understand is why AOC is always MIA. At the height of the crisis, she stayed in her Washington, D.C. apartment with a Whole Foods in the lobby and didn't come home, even though Congress wasn't in session. She did that for a whole week.
And that's a fair point. When Congress is out of session, House members are generally expected to work from the area that they represent. This is called a district work period.
The grief, I suppose, the grievance that Ms. Caruso Cabrera, apologies, has is that I spent several days after one vote in March in my apartment. And the fact of the matter was that I wasn't feeling very well and I wanted to take a few days.
Okay, look, it's not the best excuse, but if AOC says she wasn't feeling well, you kind of have to give her the benefit of the doubt and just move on. But Caruso Cabrera kept hammering away at this point.
At the height of the crisis, she stayed in her luxury apartment in DC with a Whole Foods in the lobby, so she didn't have to worry about where she was going to get her food like the rest of us. AOC is MIA. She wasn't breathing the air here when she stayed in her apartment for a full week, her luxury apartment in DC with a Whole Foods in the lobby at the height of the crisis when Congress wasn't in session.
Saying this over and over again is not substantive. Instead, she comes across as petty and annoying. Besides, there are plenty of other things that you can attack AOC on.
I'm proud to say that I'm the most present member of Congress that has ever, I would say, that has served in this seat rather in modern history. And I take an enormous amount of pride in the fact that virtually every time Congress is out of session, I am here at home.
Okay, this is a lie. There have been plenty of days when Congress was out of session where AOC was not in New York. For example, during a district work period day on October 11th, AOC was in Copenhagen at the World Mayors Summit. She's not even a mayor. On November 8th, a district work period day, she was in Council Bluffs, Iowa, campaigning for Bernie Sanders. On January 24th, a district work period day, she was in Iowa City, Iowa, campaigning for Bernie Sanders. On February 10th, a day Congress was in session, and a day where there was an actual House vote, she was in Durham, New Hampshire, campaigning for Bernie Sanders and watching a Strokes concert.
I'm proud to serve and be in this community almost every single day that I'm not called to votes in Washington.
You know, unless she's in Texas, California, Nevada, Iowa, or Michigan. But otherwise, she's in her community almost every single day. Had Caruso Cabrera done her homework, she could have legitimately called AOC out on it, but instead she just repeated over and over again that AOC stayed at home in Washington for a week. Then she ended up making the biggest mistake of the debate that left her wide open for attack.
She never opened an office actually in her district in the Bronx.
And that's not true. AOC does, in fact, have an office on Westchester Avenue in the Bronx. And AOC kind of had the perfect response.
I know Miss Caruso Cabrera isn't from the district, so she may have some trouble finding her way around.
Roasted.
This woman probably couldn't even find Sunnyside on a map until she decided to challenge me for the sake of challenging me. She doesn't care about the Bronx. She doesn't care about Queens. She cares about running for running.
And AOC might have a point, because it sure seems like Caruso Cabrera is making it more about MCC versus AOC and less about actually serving the district. Now, unlike other Democratic candidates that have a page on their website that's dedicated to issues and where they stand on policy, Caruso Cabrera's website does not. But it sure has a bunch of links to articles about Ocasio-Cortez. And with that said, I don't think the AOC has to worry about losing the primary. So during the debate, AOC bragged about her accomplishments while in Congress.
I'm proud to be a co-sponsor, and in fact, I'm proud to be an original author of the Green New Deal. Why I followed it up with unprecedented infrastructure bills in the Green New Deal for public housing.
Ocasio-Cortez has authored 20 bills, including several Green New Deal bills, all of which have been dead on arrival and would never pass even with a Democratic majority. Introducing garbage legislation is not an accomplishment.
I'm very happy to work very well and collaborate a lot with our fellow members. In fact, I have co-sponsored hundreds of bills, many of which have become law.
When you co-sponsor a bill, you're just adding your name to a bill that you support. And some bills have dozens, if not hundreds, of names attached. So she's bragging that she's attached her name to hundreds of bills like it's some kind of accomplishment, when in reality, co-sponsoring a bill is the equivalent of a Facebook like. It's practically meaningless.
I have co-sponsored hundreds of bills, many of which have become law.
Many have become law? This is an oversell, because according to Congress.gov, as of late May 2020, she has co-sponsored 435 pieces of legislation, and only 10 of them have been signed into law, including the Hidden Figures Congressional Gold Medal Act, which awarded congressional gold medals to the women portrayed in the movie Hidden Figures. Then there's this very important bill that renamed the Oyster Bay National Wildlife Refuge as the Congressman Lester Wolf Oyster Bay National Wildlife Refuge. Then there are these 3 bills that pertain to the renaming of United States Postal Service facilities. AOC, changing the world one post office at a time. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope to see you next time.